All right, here we go. Here's the next step for the kaleidoscope. You have finished your color schemes and you have finished your 3 designs. Now you are going to, before you hand this in, here's what you're going to do. So you put that to the side. What you're going to do is you're going to get a piece of tracing paper. It's a pre-cut piece of tracing paper, just big enough to go around your design. And if you want to, not a bad idea to tape it down with 2 small pieces of tape, one on each side maybe. You don't need the light box because you can see right through the tracing paper. And I went ahead and traced that already. And you can see that I've traced it kind of dark. That's what you want. You want to trace this dark because you're going to be transferring. And I'll show you what that looks like. And also, I would write the word front on the front of it. And that'll come in handy in just a moment. All right, now you can hand in your 3 designs and your color schemes. Okay, that is a separate grade, so the teacher can grade that for you. All right, now what we're going to do is set up a piece of paper to transfer your design onto. And here's the way you do it. This is a 9 by 12 piece of paper. It's the bigger paper. That's what you need. And what you're going to do is take a ruler and make sure the 0 is on the edge of the page. You're going to go halfway over, and half of 9 is 4.5. So I made a mark right there. You can do the exact same thing at the very bottom of the page. Halfway over, start at the 0, and there's my 4.5 mark. Just like making a grid while you're doing your portrait, be careful that your line really makes contact with both marks. Now I did the same thing going the long way, except halfway is now 6. So again, make sure that's right on the edge, and I made my mark at 6, and I made another mark at 6, and you must always make 2 marks. Then I connected it with a nice bold line. That's all you have to do to set that up. Now here comes the kind of the tricky part, the part that people don't know how to do yet. This is a graphite transfer. So we're going to take the graphite on the front of this and turn it over and push it onto the paper. So the corner needs to go at the corner. The front side goes down on the piece of paper. Now I want to make sure that this point is right on the corner. Okay, and I want to make sure that this edge line is right on top of my line down the middle of the 9 by 12 paper. So now I have to hold it steady, move it over, see if it's off a little bit just like that. That's not good. It's not going to work for you. You need to make sure that that line of our little piece of the kaleidoscope is right on top of that line. And again, you don't need the light box for this. We're just going to do this at your table. Now, I don't need to draw that line. All I'm going to do now is draw the designs. I'm going to push kind of firmly. I can even go back and forth a little bit. And let's see in just a moment. And you want to do this carefully. Work right on top of your design. Now I'm going to peek at this. Oh, look at that. That's going through just fine. There might be little tiny gaps here and there, but that works just fine. And what you also want to do, remember, you don't need that line because it's already there. You're also going to draw as carefully as you can where that line is, and I'll show you that, or why, in just a moment. So give me just a moment. Maybe I'll speed up the film here. So at this stage, what we're doing, the back of this piece of tracing paper, as we trace it, it's loading it up because we're going to flip this over and do the same thing again. And then the graphite that I'm loading up right now will get pushed onto the paper while I push just like this on the other side after it gets flipped over. So hold your paper steady. This tracing paper is pretty tough. You don't press as hard as you can, but you can press kind of firmly to get a good layer of graphite on the paper. And again, here's where you have to really be careful to go right on top of your line, because if you miss your line, it's not going to transfer. Remember, you're pushing the graphite that you loaded up on the other side. Right here, I'm going to go outside the line just a little bit. This time, it's kind of easy to see where you may have missed. The next few times, when the paper's loaded up, it's a little harder to tell. Now, I know I haven't gone all the way. Be real careful. Right there. Now, I'm going to give it a sneak peek. See, we can see everything, right? Just fine. Okay, we'll call that good. Now, I'm going to take off the blue tape. I'm just going to start this next one and describe the rest, because you won't need to see me do it over and over again. Okay, so you can double check. That's what that one is. Now we're going to flip it over and do the same thing. Now here's the trick. Do not try to line up these two edges here. What you always do is get the edge of your kaleidoscope piece on the edge, right on top of the line that you drew for halfway in the paper. Okay, I'm going to carefully, now I'm not looking over here. It's kind of messed up. It does not meet itself perfectly over there. But that's okay. I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. So you can reuse this tape too. All right, so I'm going to start doing this again. So don't worry that, see, I'm not sure if you can see it through the tracing paper on the camera, but I can see that things do not line up perfectly. They overlap each other a little bit. Okay, now I'm just going to go up this edge into here, just so you can see where the two meet each other. And I'm even going to draw that line again. And that line really is something you don't have to draw. Some people like to, but if you don't, it's okay. Okay, now I can see that it's off and it's lighter. This graphite is a little bit lighter, and that's okay. You can still see where it is. And I'm going to have to do some touch-up. I can see that. So let me take this off. And this will happen to everybody. So I'm going to take the original one and try to just let it connect with the new one. They're a little bit off from each other. So if I had, this would be a better way to see it. So right down that line, if I had, my first one went here, my second one that I flipped and transferred kind of went like that. They did not meet each other. Let's say it did that too. All you have to do is just kind of do a little bit of erasing and make it look like they meet each other perfectly. That's all. So if you have one line that goes here and another one that even misses it a little bit like that, it's totally okay if you just erase between them and just make them connect to each other. So as you're doing this, you really cannot worry about them not meeting up right here. It's really okay. Don't worry. So then when you flip it the other direction, again, make sure the line that is here. It goes right on top of the halfway line, and then transfer, do the pressure transfer, and then when you turn it over again, don't line up the design to the design here. You always need to line up the edge of your section on top of that line that you measured out on the 9x12 paper. Okay, so you're going to flip and transfer every single time around. You're going to make your corrections. You can erase that line going down the middle because you're not going to see it. You're not going to want it. And you're going to make all of your little touch-ups and corrections that happen to everybody. You did nothing wrong, I promise. And that would kind of continue. And what happens is, and I'll show you a finished one with a different design. You're going to draw, you back out. You're going to do the whole thing. That's what it's going to be like. You can see the original lines to cut this paper in half, but those are going to be ignored. Here is the flip and transfer piece of tracing paper. You can see how these little shapes right here became what looks very much like a flower around here. And now everything else just kind of connects. There were some touch-ups to make along the way, right along in here, right along in here. But that's when you erase, reconnect, and get it looking like this. Then, it's as simple as what you've done before, you guys. You're just going to take a piece of cardstock. After you get this cleaned up and nice and dry, go to the light box. This is a different design. But when you tack it together, then you're going to trace your design on here nice and lightly. You can see how this is done nice and lightly. This one's actually the one that we're working on. You can see the tracing out here. It's nice and soft, nice and soft. And when you start coloring, a good idea, I think, is to start from the middle and just kind of work your way out. It's not a requirement. You can see how this one, we kind of went out here and didn't necessarily go from the middle out. There's different ways to get it going. Just really remember a lot of those little coloring techniques and ideas of fading and blending and having nice sharp edges and little blank outlines and reflected light and cast shadows and little overlap shading that fades away. All those things will help make this thing look great. And again, there's more slides to look at as references, and I hope you have a good time with it. This is a drawing that takes a little time. It takes some patience. When you get to the point when you start coloring, there's a lot of repetition. Okay, you're going to kind of be doing the same thing over and over again. But that's what makes this look great, because it really unifies the whole thing, and it just looks like everything belongs, and it'll turn out great if you're careful, take your time, and be nice with the shading. All right, here we go.